Hey everybody, and welcome back to your Valorant. My name is Matt, and it's a pleasure to be back with you guys on the channel today. And I want to talk with you all a little bit about how to get the best FPS in Valorant, because this is something that I'm sure a lot of people are seeking. And obviously, the game runs pretty well. I think they did a phenomenal job in creating this and making it so well optimized for most computers. But still, I wanted to help you guys out in any way possible, get the best FPS you guys can get, because I know a lot of you guys are either live streaming or recording or doing some other things that may put a little bit of a damper on the normal good frame rates you'd be getting. So I wanted to go in depth into some of the best settings you guys could have for getting optimal FPS. Now, we're not talking the best competitive settings per se. We're not talking the best looks, aesthetics. We're not talking about any of that. We're talking about frame rate, and only frame rate here at least. So I hope you guys did enjoy the video, and let's get right into it. So starting off, guys, the first thing is we're going to start in general here. There's nothing really that pressing here. Everything here is pretty standard. The only thing that I would suggest perhaps changing is the blood. You could turn that off, and again, that will just add a little bit less visual information that your computer needs to sort of go through with. But everything else, man, corpses, I mean, this is pretty minimal, honestly. Most of these settings, I would say, are honestly pretty fine. There's nothing of very much importance with this. One thing I do think is interesting here, of course, about the next setting going into video, I want to talk a little bit about the aspect ratio method just for a minute here. So basically what this does, letterbox, is if you have some type of weird monitor, there will be black bars at either the top or the bottom fitting in that ratio. If you do fill, it will instantly stretch your footage into, or your gameplay, not footage, but your game into whatever your monitor shape is. So this is just something that if you guys want something that's a little more aesthetically sort of pleasing, again, it doesn't directly affect frame rate, but if you have a standard monitor, I wouldn't really worry about this. But something interesting in regards to, of course, to resolution, the best looking and probably the most advisable is just being on 1920 by 1080, but really the lower you're going here, the better your frames are going to get. So if for some reason you really want to go down to 1280 by 720, again, you're only playing that way in 720p, but again, I don't advise it, but again, speaking objectively here, trying to just speak on facts here, that will be the best way to get frames. In terms of your display mode, full screen is what you always want to be on, just because it's sort of the most compatible, the best designed, and it's just kind of gaming 101 to always kind of be on full screen, because it's just, in regards to a lot of things with frames and things like that, and the way your screen ends up looking less glitchy, less buggy, being on just regular full screen is always the best thing to do. Makes it a little bit more of a pain in certain ways, of course, but full screen definitely is the best thing. Now, for limiting FPS on battery, if you're on a laptop, of course, this only applies to a laptop because laptops have batteries, obviously. You're going to want to have this off, of course, if you have a regular computer, but if you happen to be on a laptop, again, let's say you feel like your laptop can't handle a very high frame rate, then of course you can put that on. But if you're striving for as high possible, like we're talking about in this video, definitely then do be leaving that off. Then limiting FPS in menus, I definitely would put that on. And honestly, the more I think about that, I'd probably put that on 30. I wouldn't really mess with that. I don't really care about how my frames look in menus. If I'm setting up my live stream or doing something like that, I'm definitely going to want that lower. Limiting FPS in the background, that's again definitely something you want to click on. Again, put that on 30 as well. Just again, you don't need it, man. There's nothing really interesting going on here in the background. And again, it's just going to make it more of a pain in the ass when you're tabbed out doing something else, and it will be sort of bogging down your computer like that. Now, here's the most important spot here. For limiting FPS, always, you want to keep this off. You want your computer, of course, to get as much FPS as possible, but my max I have set to 120, and here's why. Because let's say I wanted to do this sort of limit thing here. If I did, and let's say knowing the hertz of my monitor, a lot of times certain monitors that are only 60 hertz, which unfortunately I'm only working with 60 hertz, once you get around the 120, 140 FPS sort of range, you will start getting some, anything above that will start getting a little bit of input delay. This also relates towards VSync, which we'll get to in a little bit, but this also does relate to some sort of input delay, which is a little tough. So if you do want to limit that to say maybe 150, and again, 150 frames or something along those lines, 140, something along those lines is still pretty good. But if you want to, of course, set that limit, you can, if you feel that, that sort of 60 hertz will give you some input delay. I know with Fortnite, I always had that issue. So far with this game, I have not been having that issue, so again, I keep it off. But, if you do find that you encounter some type of input delay issue, which again is entirely possible, I experienced that a lot with Fortnite when I'd have my frame rate, set to, 300, whatever, I noticed I was getting massive problems with input delay. So that's really all up to you guys. Again, I haven't experienced on this game, but if that's something that you feel like you may be experiencing, definitely that's something I would look into. Graphics quality here, again, another very, very important sort of category here. Keep everything off and low. And again, we're talking only frame rate here, so this is going to look disgusting, of course, but if you feel that frames is the most important thing and maybe giving yourself a competitive edge, then keep everything off. It's just not worth having any of this stuff on. It always is going to be bogging you down. A VSync, definitely keep that off. That is terrible. Anti-aliasing is as fantastic as anti-aliasing is. Definitely keep that off. And for those that are wondering, anti-aliasing, essentially what that does, anti-aliasing was first invented in 1996 with the Nintendo 64, and I've always been interested in anti-aliasing for a long time because I always thought it was wonderful that when it was first invented, this made it to where on the Nintendo 64 you could walk up to walls and to floors and look really, really closely, and it wasn't pixelated, it wasn't blurry, it was just immensely clear, and it didn't sort of get worse as you got closer. It was an incredible technology, but again, it will be bogging you down just a little bit. So that was a little side tangent there, but I'd leave that off. Again, shame, but you want to get them frames, so definitely keep that off. Filtering 1x, and then here in regards to everything else here, you want to really leave all these off. I have the gun skin visuals on because I love camos and I want to look at them, but realistically you should be keeping them off for the best frame rates. Distortion off, shadows off, and I had a lot of discussion about shadows in my last settings video, which wasn't in regards to frame rate, but just in regards to other settings. I had a lot of discussion about shadows, but this ain't CSGO, folks. This ain't CSGO. There's a lot of conflicting opinions on shadows. I've heard 50-50 about, and honestly, from my experience, I don't find shadows to be useful to have on. So just speaking from the form of competitive, I don't find it useful to be having those shadows on, but again, this is definitely sort of up for debate, but it isn't CSGO. I know CSGO, you want the shadows completely, but with this game, it's definitely not. So shadows is still up for debate, and we're still sort of looking into that. But yeah, that's pretty much everything, man. Final thing, if you want to look at stats, for FPS, tick rate, maybe packet loss, you leave those on, unless you're, a total geek, and that's fine. Unless you're a total geek, you can put the other stuff on, but this will probably just be clogging up your screen. But a couple of these things I think are fine to have on, in just regards to sort of looking at your stats. But with that being said, guys, thank you all so much for watching. Hopefully you guys did enjoy. I tried to make this as concise as possible. If you guys enjoyed, definitely drop a like, subscribe if you guys are new, join our Discord, follow our Twitter, all that good stuff, links down below. My name is Matt. Thank you guys so much. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.